You're listening to Season 4, Episode 7. Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk Shop. My name is Therese and I'm your host. I run a business called Small Business Collaborative where I get to help small business owners start and grow their wholesale and make more sales and increase their profitability. On this podcast, I speak to brand owners, buyers, shopkeepers, industry experts, all about running a small business and building that relationship between the retailer and the brand. Today I'm speaking with Abigail from Abigail Warner, a creative studio that produces luxury paper goods that includes personalised wrapping paper. They have been running shops in retailers such as Harrods and Selfridges and all sorts of high-end stores across the world, and Abigail also does high-end wedding stationery. We spoke all about how Abigail got started, how her first big retailer was Harrods and how that happened, and Abigail shares all her tips for getting started and running a small business. She also shares some of the mistakes that she has done throughout the years that she's been running her business and challenges that the business has faced. I recorded this episode with Abigail back in September when I was recording most of this season's episodes. Not the solo ones, but most of the guest ones. It feels like a long time ago now. I loved my chat with Abigail. I think that she has so much industry experience, and she also shares about Retail Fest, which is an event she runs at Top Drawer, and it used to be a standalone event, and she shares a little bit more about that. So I really hope that you enjoy our chat, and here's my talk with Abigail from Abigail Warner. Hello Abigail, thank you so much for coming on Let's Talk Shop. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I would love for us to start off by you introducing yourself and your business and what you do.
Okay, so I manage a boutique studio that primarily focuses on printed products. So we have a beautiful range of home office stationery, and we also are very well known in the luxury retail world for having experiential retail collaborations with retailers such as Selfridges, Harrods and John Lewis in the UK, as well as internationally in Paris at Le Bon Marché, and also in Zurich at Gemini, Brown Thomas, which is part of the Selfridges group in Dublin. So kind of go pretty hot and heavy with the luxury retail side of the market and produce beautiful exclusive collaborations.
That's wonderful. And do you do that under your brand or do you do that under their brand?
So it depends on the retailer. So we can bring something to life for them that's, kind of quite white label-y, that the end user wouldn't know is, not part of that store. A bit of retail theatre for them, or we do something and the retailer feels that the name that we have adds value, so we'll do it as X retailer in collaboration with Abigail Warner. So it really depends on the retailer and how they want to position it.
And how did you get to this stage? How did you get started? When did you get started?
So I set up my business in 2007. I launched the business just as we were going into a recession, which obviously I didn't know at the time because I may have been a little bit more speculative about that. I launched the business having worked in London for a couple of years, and I've been doing some design work on the side very casually, kind of getting into design the way I think people do, just in a kind of informal way at first, and then developed a bit of a love for producing and designing. And for me, always the bit that I love the most is the creative process. And I launched the business at Harrogate Home and Gift, which is a beautiful trade event that's run every year in July in 2007, and knew from the outset who my customer was. And basically, I just looked very much to myself as to help, to develop the look and the aesthetic, the tone, the colour palette, the product itself. I went to market very, very clear with what that offering actually was. I was very lucky, or did I make a good business decision? I'm not sure. I took on a PR company from the outset, and they helped me open some doors and helped me refine my message. And also the investment at Harrogate helped me as well. The first big retailer that I got was Harrods.
Wow, that must have been so cool.
Oh, it was amazing. I can remember the exact moment when they walked on my stand. This was actually in the January. It was the first London trade event that I'd done. And it was top drawer January. I can even remember the number of my stand. I was A13. I considered that lucky. 13, obviously, we know people can consider unlucky, but for me, it's always lucky. And it was literally 6:05, and the show, or 5:05, whatever time the show closes. And one of the bits of advice I'd received from my dad actually was never be in a rush to leave these things. You've paid so much money to be here, you put so much into it. Make sure that you're there, after the show's finished, because you just never know. And the show had actually closed at this point, and the buyer from Harrods, he came and he picked what was called the Ooh La La collection, and so we started selling with Harrods in 2008. And we then went on to do an exclusive collaboration with them. We, at one point, sold their most expensive greetings card, because back in the day when things were very heavily embellished, and the look was incredibly bling. So we sold the most expensive greetings card at Harrods, and therefore probably in London. And just kind of went from there. And I think that what happens is, as you get, there's some luck involved for sure. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. They were looking for a story, and my designs that, were kind of new to the market. I wasn't sold in their competitors at the time, and I had what they were looking for. That is luck, there's no other, kind of way to view that really. So, and then that was in 2008, and, I still work with them. So it's, for me, the longevity of that is great. And it also, kind of really made sure, I guess, to me, as well as my customer, that is the customer base that I was going for, that people who use Harrods as a corner shop, that's the customer that I was going for. So it just cemented, I guess, that was what I was going for, and that's what I got. So that's kind of how it all started with the big retailers.
That's amazing. And how did you feel like when that happened? Do you remember how you felt?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. And I was absolutely overjoyed, because I was a Harrods customer. For me, it just ticked a lot of my boxes. I'm not necessarily motivated by, I don't know whether I should be admitting this or not, but I'm not really motivated by money. I find that, kind of having that perfect brand alignment for me gives way more gratification, than having a really big contract with another retailer, which I've also had as well. But that nothing ever compared to the first order that I did, that I fulfilled for Harrods. Yeah, I can still, like I say, I can remember the day they placed the order. I can remember the day that we, raised our first invoice to them. I can remember the day that we personally drove down to the distribution centre and hand delivered, the first order. Yeah, it was like it's like a fairy tale to me.
That's amazing. And did you, when you first started your business, because you were so clear on what you were doing and where you were positioning yourself, did you have like a list of retailers of like, this is the dream sort of list?
I kind of did. I had a list of that was really it did. I don't think it actually said what retailers. I think it was just, when I was talking about the brand, because obviously I had to for press releases for the PR company, I just was targeting myself at luxury, high-end lifestyle and fashion boutiques. So obviously that Harrods fits into that, apart from not a boutique, it's an enormous department store. I don't think that I felt at that point, the business had only been going for 7 months at that point. I was still very much finding my feet. And at that point, I was only, I picked up some fabulous, beautiful indie boutiques at Harrogate and picked up, kind of lots more at Top Drawer. I just literally, was, like I said, I was blown away when, Harrods. And it just really helped me from a confidence perspective. And also what you tended to find, I don't know if it's the case now, but when you're in one, then you tend to pick up the other, the other kind of boutiques. And I would get people who would go into Harrods and see the cards and love them and love the aesthetic, and then they'd book them to do their weddings. But there's an organic process as well, that by association of being with this certain brand, you can get other kind of other work or other projects or, other leverages. So it's a bit of a chain reaction, I think.
Absolutely. It is. And I think especially that thing where you're in one and it opens the door for other opportunities. Yeah. I think they all visit each other's shops. Perhaps not quite right now, but, normally they do keep a track of each other, I suppose. Yeah. And they want to be different, but they also want to be a little bit the same.
Yeah, totally.
And how do you also manufacture your products, or how do you work with them, or do you just provide a design service?
No, we do. Well, we don't do the manufacturing in-house.
No.
We use various manufacturers around the UK, depending on what it is. Any external print work that we do, we use a company in Nottingham called Century Studios to do all of my print work, and I've used them for 13 years, since we set the business up, and they're, exceptional at customer service. I'm always, as I said earlier, I'm always in things for, the long term. So I, kind of really do my homework on the manufacturing side of things, because I want it to be forever, whilst I'm offering that particular product or whatever. So I always go, I'm naturally very curious. So I will always go and visit my manufacturers. And also because we only manufacture in the UK, so it's, kind of easier to do that. It means that you can manage that supply chain. I'm absolutely passionate about making things in the UK. And there's also a huge sustainability element there as well as supporting local economies. So that kind of ticks all my boxes. In terms of the design, we're a design studio, so the designs are done, in-house. I have one of the girls who works with me, Nicola. She's a fashion print designer, so she's incredible, producing pattern repeats. So we use, kind of lots of her work that will be to my brief, and then it will get, kind of worked on by me, or get worked on by, other members of the team, so that it's a truly collaborative kind of piece of work.
That's lovely. That's nice that you have found a way that works really well for you guys and that you work on it together. It's nice to work as a team, because I guess when you started, was it just you or what?
So it was just me for probably about 18 months with help, kind of unpaid, kind of
family, friends.
And then I because we, as well as doing the retail side of things, we also did a lot of weddings. But I only ever limited my, number of weddings that we do, but they were a really high end. So always required a lot of, kind of hand holding. And I always like to go and meet my brides and, spend time with them. So and also I should note that most of our customers, I'd say, without exception, at any one time, 80% of our customer base is in London. I just found myself spending more and more time, traveling. So it just meant that the online shop and not on the high street shop and the retail needed somebody else to kind of look after it. And that's when I brought in help. So I've had different people, kind of work for me over the years. But the current setup that we have is where there's myself, and I have Helen, who is basically the studio manager. So she, manages all of everything from stock ordering to the online orders and, admin and, all of that kind of thing. And then I've got Rebecca, who does, anything, kind of marketing led. So she does, the newsletter that we're launching. She does a lot of the wedding design. She'll meet, a lot of the wedding clients, and, kind of just, she's just brilliant at things like brochures and, whatever. Everybody kind of plays to their strengths. And then there's Nick, who is the fashion print designer, who does lots of the beautiful, prints and, pattern repeats. I tend to concentrate on business development and, kind of the client management side of things. And it just, it works really nicely. And then we just bring in seasonal, people to help on top of that.
That's nice. Do you miss the designing bits at all?
No, I'm still very involved. So as I mentioned earlier, I love the creative process. So all of the inspiration comes from my mood boards, and I like to do physical mood boards, not just digital mood boards, to set the scene or to create a story for a look or a collection or whatever. And I'll very much kind of say, these are my ideas, and my ideas will be, we use Illustrator to create all of our we use Illustrator software to create the designs, and it's very much a collaborative product. I'm still very, very involved. Probably a bit too much in some cases, but so I feel like I get the best of all parts of the business, really.
That's great. And do you find, with the type of retailers that you work with, like the really high-end ones, do you find that there's any particular challenges that you face working with them versus working with other types of retailers?
I mean, for sure. The biggest challenge, I think, we're working with retailers is their constant, kind of need for newness and, a new collection, or what are you bringing out now, or where are you expanding into, kind of, I'm hoping that with the dawn of this, kind of new approach to buying, as in consumer buying, that, this will kind of, the stress of that will ease off a little bit, because we've found for sure that to keep one of our retailers happy, I'm happy to share that retailer, say John Lewis, that we ended up, because of my insistence of manufacturing in the UK, we ended up having lost leaders that went into the stores, which caused an enormous financial black hole in the business that I didn't foresee, because I didn't realise they were going to order in the quantities that they did. So something to note is that, whatever you put in front of them, they may buy, and I just not worked out the kind of fine detail enough to work out that actually that's going to cost us to put in. And we ended up having to pull them, and nobody wants to do that.
Such an awful feeling.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, I've made every single mistake in the book, literally. And that was a big lesson learned. And the other issue, again, using them as an example, is just how long they take to pay you. So you're propping up. Back in back in 2015, which was when we launched our, kind of a big home office collection, which had, kind of letter trays, magazine racks, pen pots, a huge range of beautiful wares. We weren't being paid for, kind of 90 days for product that we'd put into, production 90 days before that. So your black hole that you are having to plug, and your cash flow becomes huge, just to develop products just because you're responding to this never-ending desire for newness. And you just have to be very careful, I think. But I think until you work at that kind of level, you don't know what you do and what you don't want to do, and what you are happy to do and where you are happy to stretch yourself, and kind of what works for you. It's hard. That's growing pains. So I definitely learned a lot in that year. That I wouldn't be interested in repeating. But, so there are challenges, but there's also huge pros that come with those challenges. Once you've been and worked with those retailers, you learn so much.
Yeah.
And whether that be good or bad, that you can apply to all decisions that you make with the business going forward, all clients that, you make going forward. And when you're associated with those brands, people know that they can trust your brand, so it's the same as anything, you've got to take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah. I guess now you're never going to sell something as a loss leader again or present it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that is a very, very common mistake people do. Or I don't even know if you want to, a mistake. It's one of those things that is so easy to get yourself into one of those situations because there's so much excitement going into supplying one of those retailers too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think where I'd probably just missed the mark on that was I'm normally really good with pricing, and the really great thing about predominantly paper-based products is the margins are really workable, handwork. They will immediately ask you for a discount, and they will immediately ask you for a discount on your final invoice if they settle within a certain period. So you're already looking at potentially between 10 to 25% off your already tight trading price for food. And because this new line was new to me as a business of working with these specific products, whereas I would normally have some leeway with making design decisions that would save pence here and there, with these particular products, the saving money capacity just wasn't there. And actually, some of the design decisions I'd made that I considered essential were essential, and I couldn't drop them, and actually ended up having to add to it. So just a huge learning curve, on that. But I wouldn't change it. It taught me so much in that, in that period. I am a limited company, so I have an accountant who reviews my accounts monthly, which is something that I set up off the back of a learning situation. I find that very helpful, combined with I use an online platform called Xero, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
And, I just was being challenged by, how much things were actually costing me, because you could be having thousands and thousands of pounds of sales, but actually it doesn't matter if the bottom line is, kind of struggling. And, I really needed as a bit of a kind of wake-up call, I guess, kind of reining in on what I was going to do with, with these products long term. So we withdrew them from John Lewis and sell them directly to customers. That's where, that kind of really helped me. I still really wanted to sell these beautiful products, but there's some things, especially if your focus is on manufacturing in the UK, that just doesn't lend itself to selling as a trade. So it was a learning.
Yeah, and I think when you go in and negotiate with this these big retailers too, you don't know at the start how much it's going to cost you to deliver to them and all the work that goes into it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of because a couple of the things we kind of develop together, and whatever you kind of quote, they will hold you to, regardless of whether things change, along the way. But when you're in that situation, all you want to do is you want to be able to fulfill on what you're saying, right? So you're kind of happy to kind of let the book stop with you. I would never, ever do that now. Absolutely, not do that now. But I was happy to do it then. And yeah, I think, you just have to try. You don't know. It's all a learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so much harder in that sense, if it's your brand, it's your business, because you can make that choice. Whereas, if you work as the salesperson and they push back, you end up having to push back because you're not going to go to your manager and say, we're going to lose money on each sale.
Yeah.
You never. So I think that as business owners, it's such a challenge because your heart and your kind of sensible part of your brain, they kind of have a bit of a conflict.
Yeah, exactly. But something kicks in. Something has to kick in. And if you're going to use anything as a sense checker, if you're a creative, it has to be your financials. Nothing else there's no other metric.
If you want to keep your business alive and keep going and do what you love, you need to get clear on your numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you still sell to independents as well?
So we sell to independents that we have always kind of worked with, but I don't take on any new retail contracts. It will fulfill on, some old stock, but we don't develop new products for anyone other than brief with an exclusive retailer anymore.
Okay, so when did you start ing towards that kind of business model?
2016.
And did that make it more creative for you?
I just suddenly got very nervous about pushing the button on massive print runs, and I was getting absolutely zero joy from doing that. And I just kind of went back to first points and principles of what made me happy, and just printing huge print runs of greetings cards, wrapping paper, notebooks, whatever that looked like, just did absolutely nothing for me. So I made some decisions towards the tail end of 2015 that coincided with us starting we started working a lot more closely with a handful of large retailers. My focus just shifted from having, the collection based on our spring, summer, to working to a brief with the retailer in collaboration. And we also started that year in Christmas, autumn, winter 2015, doing pop-up shops in retailers. So that a lot of our focus kind of went from the everyday, seasonal pop-ups, because obviously just because something's live for 3 months, it's in, kind of production for 9 months before that. So, there were some decisions that were made that kind of helped shape that. And
how is that going, in terms of this year with everything that happened? Yeah. Are you doing any pop-ups this year?
No, so it's going to be a very strange Christmas this year. So for the past 5 years, from September, so from kind of like now, or even before, I guess, we've been, we would be working on the launches of the pop-ups, the concessions in high profile retailers. And, we're not doing any of them this year because we take our own, we work a number of ways, but we take our team in either to do the installation, which would be done by me, or we'll have a whole team down there for the winter doing the predominantly personalised wrapping paper to order. And there's no way that you can really safely offer that level of customer service in a way that I would be happy with at the minute. You know, where I've not been to London since March, you know, so, or I've been overseas, but in a very relaxed kind of holiday vacation kind of way, not in a working way. So it's paused for this year, so it's going to be very strange. It's normally so full on, and I'm, you know, traveling internationally, installing printers and Macs and training teams, and normally really exciting and glamorous and fabulous, and I absolutely love it. Yeah, we're not going to have any of that this year. I've had to, you know, make the switch to working so closely with the retailers to becoming the retailer myself, which we had anyway, you know, on the high street for 13 years, you know, have our own e-commerce shop, but have always had the focus very much on the retail side of things, whereas, you know, now temporarily focuses on basically becoming a bit of a, you know, well, becoming an e-commerce business.
And how are you finding that?
I mean, it's challenging because it's a very tactile product. And the reason our product is so successful within retailers is because people get to see the product being made. And that's one of the reasons why you can justify, as well as the physical cost of it, but the retail theatre adds a really lovely dimension to the buying process.
Yeah, of course.
You can sell the product because you're in front of the customer, and taking it online, you lose so much of that. And yeah, so we don't know how it's going to go. You know, I'm investing a lot of time and money at the minute for the website to launch, you know, in October, ready for the, you know, Christmas period with some customization software. So people can actually, you know, kind of try before they buy on, you know, the 12 best-selling products.
Yeah.
So that they've still got some element of the retail theatre, if you like. But it's a very, very different proposition. At the end of the day, our hero product is a luxury consumable, and you either kind of get it or you don't. We'll see. It's going to be a learning curve again.
Yeah, this year has been a bit like that.
Yeah, totally.
So you also do a lot with Clarion and Top Drawer and Home and Gift. What do you do with them?
So basically how that came about was I used to run a bit of a paper community called the Paper Girls, and annually we put on something called Paper Fest, and it was a really great success, but it became very big very quickly, and alongside all of the other work that I was doing just became huge to kind of put on, you know, by yourself. And I wanted it to be in glamorous locations in London and have amazing speakers, and, you know, kind of we would have to go and, you know, load into one Marylebone, for example, at, you know, kind of 2:15 a.m. in the morning, you know, for an event that was that day. So you were, you know, kind of living on Red Bull, and it was fab, but it wasn't a sustainable project for me in terms of, you know, long term. And I'd invited Top Drawer actually to one of the events to talk to the community who was there about the benefits of exhibiting at trade shows. So they came to one of the events that we put on at the Music Rooms on South Moulton Street in London in 2015, I think it was, and just really enjoyed it and felt that we'd, you know, kind of created something quite special, and there was, you know, some really great partnerships going on, and basically asked if I would come and deliver the event as part of Top Drawer.
Mm-hmm.
So basically exactly the same, you know, kind of theory of a platform of speakers and an awards program and, you know, other interviews and other ways of raising brand profile and, you know, getting people to talk to each other within Top Drawer. So that's what we did. The first show, I think, was in 2016. I may be slightly out with my years here. And yeah, so that's been really great. So I basically get to carry on, you know, kind of, you know, working on a really great product that is supports the community, helps people whilst kind of learning from a really amazing big company like Clarion. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about, really.
That's so interesting. I didn't know the backstory of that at all. So that's so great to hear.
Yeah, it's fab, and they're great to work with. Like I said earlier, they're really invested in the community. So it's not just that they manage events, that they're really interested. I think because the shows have been going on for so long, so Top Drawer and Home and Gift at Harrogate, they've got such great kudos in the industry. And they're just really invested in that. So being able to pivot from being an in-person events company to a virtual events company where they're attracting thousands of people to look at the brands that exhibit with them and support the buyers, and they were able to turn that around in kind of months is pretty admirable.
Yeah, I think the show organizers definitely all had like a big task at hand. When we found out they can't run. It's can't have been easy, especially with the sort of outlays they would have had already.
Yeah, totally. It's and I can't comment on the nuts and bolts of it, but yeah, it's a bit mind blowing.
It is. I think it's I don't know the ins and outs either at all, but I think it's admirable that all the shows have done something.
Yeah.
They tried their best, and I think everyone has done as much as they can out of a pretty unusual situation.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
And do you have any top tips for younger brands that are just starting out that you wish you knew when you started?
I think the one thing that kind of really stood me in really great stead, because I came from a business environment, I think as well, I had that kind of mindset, but it's this thing around, people talk about it a lot now, but this understanding your customer, because it literally shapes everything you do. And I was really, lucky that because of my background, when I was in corporate world, I had a coach who helped me, kind of mindset, I'm going back 15 years. So I was incredibly privileged to be of that mindset way back in the day. And I think if you combine that with I'm a very confident person, I think it just really, really helps you get clarity on what your messages are, what you're looking for, why you're doing it. And then add to that, why are you doing it? For me, I was really tired of commuting. At the time, just turned 30. I was kind of spending half my life on a train, in and out of London. My time wasn't my own. So one of the reasons I set up my business was to gain time. Now, don't get me wrong, in the early days, that concept, when I say in the early days, I was up at 4:30 this morning as well. I'm still very kind of whatever, but that was preparing for a shoot. I wanted to do that. I'm not getting up at 4:30 just to kind of put a greetings card order together or So kind of understand and be honest with yourself about why you're doing it, because you will revisit that a lot during your kind of business journey, and have a very critical eye. So the person I try and please the most, and I think this goes back to me being my customer, is me. So I have a little, and I know that sounds quite arrogant, by the way, but I feel like if you're wanting to work in the luxury sector, again, it kind of goes back to this clarity of what you want out of whatever it is you're doing. That, I'm very critical with myself. It does make me critical with others as well. But, I'm very critical with myself. Nothing will go out unless it's, of a standard that, I'm completely happy with.
Yeah.
So I think, again, that probably comes to putting your name to something. And probably make sure that even when if you're only thinking about working with really small indie retailers, your costings and your financials have to make sense, and you have to be super super clear on that. Get a software solution that ties in your stock to your invoicing, and just enter from, kind of day one with the mindset of the fact that it is a business rather than a hobby, or, if it's a hobby that's turned into a business, then talk about it as if it's a business. I went limited from day one because I was, I wanted to think about my business as a business.
I think that's a great advice. And I think it's something we talk a lot about nowadays, but back then, I don't know if people talked about your mindset.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And how do you feel about retail this autumn? Are you feeling excited still, even though you're not doing the pop-ups?
I'm excited. I don't know if excited was. There is a little bit of apprehension around, kind of what it's going to bring. I had a model that I used. It was very successful, so I replicated it, I licensed it, I, kind of had a really great time with it. And all of a sudden, like a lot of people, it's not there, that route to market is, temporarily doesn't exist. So I have a level of apprehension, but it's only because it's the unknown. So I am excited. As I mentioned, we've got a photo shoot in the studio tomorrow, and I can't wait. We've got I'm sat here with a Christmas tree to the left of, it's kind of a bottle of mulled wine that isn't opened yet. And there's a lot of energy. We've got a lot of energy for, kind of making the e-commerce, the new e-commerce side of business a success. So I guess I am excited, but, with a caveat of that we're just very much finding our way.
Yeah. And I guess that's how most of us are probably feeling about the year. Like, I'm super excited in the sense where I think this is going to be a great year for small businesses, especially if you have a strong online presence.
Yeah.
But there's obviously apprehension in terms of what's the industry going to look at like after this? How do we come out on the other side? What's going to happen with trade shows in January and February? There's lots of not unknowns, but I think I'm choosing to look at all the positives.
I think that's everything you can do, because I think, part of life is ignoring the negative, isn't it? It's a survival tactic. So why would we be looking at this any different? But I think at the same time, there has to be some sound decisions that are made, kind of en route to that. And I think, I'm looking forward to sitting down in January and reviewing what's worked and what hasn't, and letting that. Yeah. Because the only way that you can make sound business decisions is from data, sales or, kind of whatever your metrics are. So I'm kind of looking forward to fast forwarding, if you like, and learning, and then making sure that for next year I have a really robust plan in all manners of whatever that kind of looks like. And we're also going to know, what the footfall is. So is the footfall in retail great enough to kind of balance out being able to do pop-ups again? It's going to be really interesting. I'm intrigued, my ever curious nature. I'm intrigued to see what the retail landscape is going to be over Christmas.
So am I. I think it's going to be very interesting, and we can just work on it and do our best and then see what happens. It would be great to hear how listeners, if they want to buy your personalized products, or if they want to support you and follow you and connect with you, how can they do that?
So I have a portfolio website, which is abigailwarner.com. There you can hop onto our shop, which has an edit for autumn and winter of our best-selling products, as well as some newness. And you can reach me also on social at AML Warner. And my social is kind of a bit of just a digital scrapbook, really, of my life and the brand, and what we get up to.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and taking the time, even though you have your shoot tomorrow. I'm very, very thankful, and it was great to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Abigail, and thank you so much to all of you who are listening. I really hope that you enjoyed that episode. We are getting close to the finish line for the season now, whether you are staying open or not. I'm sure you're getting to that point where it's close to your last guaranteed shipping date before Christmas. So I really hope that you have had a great season and that you still got some energy for the festivities that will hopefully happen over Christmas. It will be an odd one for sure, but hopefully by next Christmas we will be back to a much more normal situation. I will be taking a little break over Christmas. There will be one episode next Monday, and then there will be a few weeks without any episode. But until next Monday, I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I hope that you tune back in then. Thank you so much for listening.